Okay, so it's currently the 1st of March, that is right, so it's the 1st of March 2025. Now, the time that this video will come out for on demand will, of course, be the 2nd of March, but the idea is that we are moving into a new phase or a new month of the format. Now, unfortunately, we only get one new product this month, and that will be Maze of Master. I personally don't feel it's going to shake up the meta too much. We already know that the brand new Ascension card, spell card, is a secret rare inside the set. I'm not sure what else is going to be in the set that is going to be meta changing and meta effective. But I thought what I'd do is I'll take you through pretty much the same tier list, update it, go through, place the decks where I think they kind of go, and then kind of work it from there. Let's dive into this list. So I'm going to be starting straight off with Mermail Atlanteans. Without a shadow of doubt, this deck is competitive. Like, this deck is absolutely insane right now. So yeah. Now, Darkworld Fiendsmith is competitive. Again, Darkworld Fiendsmith very well may be competitive, but is it competitive because Dark Worlds are doing it, or is it competitive because the Fiendsmith have kind of held them up? So that's kind of the way I look at it. It's like, I'm not gonna class it as something like that. Yes, of course, you can make it better when you add in different engines, but then if we were doing that, every deck that could play Fiendsmiths would obviously be ranked on the lists. So, what about Plants? Didn't they top a while ago, or did that just change too much with the current format? So, Plants topped last year, I think was the last time, and I feel that the current format just doesn't help them. Like, Detonators are still incredibly powerful. Malice is taking away the graveyard, are still insanely powerful as well. It just makes it all really awkward for them to play. Is Runic pure? Like, is that the stun deck here? With Runic, we're probably going to be classing it as stun. I will be talking, as I talk through these right now, as I talk through them, I'll be talking about their different variants. So don't worry, we're not going to be like jogging around too much. I will explain it as we go. Mermail is still really good. Dweller sucks against them. Like, what I mean by that is, if someone puts Dweller against them, it does weaken the deck massively. But we saw it at YCS Birmingham. Like, that deck just ran riot. Obviously, the difference between that and something like Fire Kings is Fire King had Dinkaboo, which is probably one of the better, if not one of the best, pilots of the era right now. But we also saw that there was Mermails in the top 4. There was Mermails being heavily represented. Like, the deck is, like, no doubt a competitive deck. It's insanely powerful. If it goes first unanswered, it will pretty much win the game 99% of the time. If it goes second, it does have the ability to pull a board apart and break boards. But it does kind of cause a few issues. Makes it a little bit trickier to do. And if your opponent knows they're against Mermail, that's where Dweller comes in. But then if you know you're going to be facing Abyss Dweller, you're going to counter side for it as well. Next one is Thunder Dragons. Now, I wouldn't say that Thunder Dragons is anti-meta. Colossus is a good card right now, and technically Colossus itself is an anti-meta card, but the deck itself isn't like an anti-meta deck. Actually, no, I take that back. It kind of is, because it can play D-Shifter, it can play Colossus, so it basically says no graveyard, no searching. So technically, on the premise of what Thunder Dragons can do, it is actually an anti-meta deck. Because not allowing your opponent to search cards is going to be really, really important with the brand new Ascended 7th cards, because they're all going to want to search. Obviously, they have Bonfire as well. So, unlike with Drown Lockbird, and you say, yeah, Drown Lockbird, once you get one search, I say, I'm going to stop you searching. If you just go a Colossus and say no searching at all, it causes a lot of issues. So, to be honest, I'm actually quite comfortable putting Thunder Dragons in anti-meta. The issue is, it has a really good matchup against Ryziel, but it has a really bad matchup against Malice, because if you drop Shifter against Malice, they don't care as much. So, it does give it a bit more back and forth. We are going to be judging based on tops and recent success, because I feel that's the most fair way of doing it. But that being said, we're also going to talk about representation, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to be putting Fire Kings preview. Fire King will not be top tier. Fire Kings is a good, I would class it as like an anti-meta, meta-cool style of deck, but the pilot does take a deck up. Like, again, I wouldn't class Sky Strikers, because they did really well at a YCS a while back, that it would be top tier, because that's just because it was Ryan Yu that piloted it. And obviously, when you have a pilot of that level, taking a deck that is, like, it doesn't change the deck. The pilot doesn't change the deck from being a tier 0 deck or like a casual deck to a tier 0 deck. They just pilot incredibly well that it competes with the current decks. So more so representation will dictate where a deck kind of feels a bit as well. So it's going to be very, very interesting. And exactly like you've just said there, Luke, because a good pilot can make a bad deck great. So we're going to be just ranking the decks regardless of the pilots, because I think that's the fair way of doing it. Like, I don't want to mislead people and say, oh, yo, Fire Kings as a deck on its own is an anti-meta or is a top-tier deck, and then someone goes, why is that? And I go, oh, well, Dinkabui won YCS with it. But it's like, that was Dinkabui that did that. It wasn't the deck itself. I hope that clears everything out and makes sense. Madolche. I think Madolche are an incredibly fun deck, really, really powerful, but unfortunately it kind of gets stuck at this local level element, because going second, it can be pretty tricky unless you build it specifically to go second, because you have the space to play Kaijus, Dark Rulers and everything else. You can also build it to go first, and the fact that it can set up a card that is basically non-target shuffle during your turn or your opponent's turn is insanely powerful in its own. That being said, I still don't feel that it's going to be an anti-meta. It doesn't have like an insanely good matchup against the main meta decks, or one of them. So yeah, kind of sits around there. Tenpai, Sword Soul, Tenpai, Ryuji, however you want to put it. Again, I feel that at local level, a little bit less than Madolche because it's not as explosive as it once was. It does kind of falter to the fact, quite like Madolche, that it can't protect naturally from the Biru, which does cause it a couple of different issues. But I feel that it's a very, very fun deck, very cheap. You could class it as casual, but the way that I'm going to class casual decks are decks that can't play through hand traps. They're decks that you would play around a dining room table with your friends. They are the ones where you probably say, right, no one plays Ash Blossom, no one plays Imperms, like no one play hand traps, let's just play for fun. And I think that's where certain decks will fall within it. Synchrons, I wouldn't say that Synchrons are anti-meta, but I do also feel that they're very, very strong local level. They're kind of relatively the same as these other two as well, Madolches and Tenpai, is that when they go off, they do incredibly well. Now, there are loads of different variants of Synchrons, and I have seen people that play the Kashtira Synchrons. I've seen people play stuff like Azamina Synchrons. I've seen people play just pure Synchrons, Adventure Synchrons. There's so many different options. It really is kind of cool, the versatility that this deck has. But the biggest issue that it does have is that it can get stopped by quite a few hand traps. It doesn't have a lot of space in the main deck, quite like Elemental Heroes, to play loads of non-engine hand traps. So if it goes second, it can struggle quite a bit, which is where it kind of filters in at the local level. Next one is Gimmick Puppets. Now, Gimmick Puppets have definitely dropped off. Now, Gimmick Puppets have dropped off because they not only did they get a hit on the ban list, which made their consistency for an FTK a lot less, they also ended up getting... what about Dynamorphia? I feel like trap decks are pretty good. Yeah, Dynamorphia are pretty good. I can add that in. And where is Ice Barrier? Again, Ice Barrier, I wouldn't class it as anti-meta. Ice Barrier is going to fall under the Runic variants that I'll talk about a little bit later on, because I feel that's probably the strongest version you could play of Ice Barriers. Dynamorphias can definitely deserve to be in here as like a bit of a shout out. I'll do them as a shout out because I feel the biggest issue with Dynamorphia, even though they're so good, because it's a control style deck, you have to play it really, really fast. And I feel what would hold Dynamorphia back is if you're not being watched by a judge 100% of the time, your opponent, as soon as they know you're playing Dynamorphia, will slow play you to death. I near enough almost guarantee it. So with the Gimmick Puppets, not only did they get a consistency hit, but now they need to deal with all of the different Mole Chummies. All the different Mole Chummies cause them issues, means that people have more ways to get to the outs. Draw and Lockbird is floating around now as well, so it does make it very, very difficult. I wouldn't say it's a casual deck. I wouldn't say it's really a local level deck, but it can do very, very well at a local level deck. It can go second quite nicely and OTK consistently. It has space to play non-engine. I feel the biggest difference between the Gimmick Puppets going above... I'd probably say maybe No, I suppose these are both the same because they don't have much space for non-engine, whereas these both have space for non-engine, which works out really nicely. Labyrinths, I think Labyrinths can be anti-meta. I feel that Labyrinths, quite like as Luke mentioned about Dynamorphias, they're kind of the better ones for an anti-meta call in my opinion, because they don't really burn their own life points away. They have a little bit more flexibility to get stuff to the from the extra deck in stuff like Chaos Angel, and then they can free up a lot more space. They can be played with different engines like Fiendsmiths as well. They can go for the furniture version, which relies heavier on the graveyard, but then they can also just go Floodgate Control, which doesn't really need to rely on the graveyard so much. That being said as well, when you're adding in stuff like the Lord of the Heavenly Prisons, if you want to go down that route, but you also have just Lady being the ability to protect from being destroyed while you control set cards and protecting your set cards, it means that Duster and Lightning Storm isn't that big of an issue to kind of worry about. Where would you put Ryuji Dino? So I got Ryuji here, so I'll jump to Ryuji now. Now, Ryuji Dino, I would love to say it's competitive, but again, it kind of falls within this element right here. The issue with the Ryujis is that it gets stopped by Droll completely. Dinos itself also get stopped by Droll completely. So if your opponent has it, you need to be able to play cross out in order to deal with it, or call by the grave and get lucky and see it. If it goes off unanswered, the fact that you can search out all of your engines, the fact that you can play with Dynamorpheus if you want to class it that way as well, the fact that you can end with UCT backed up by a Varudras can be very, very important as well. Is this post Aelin, which comes out in like 5 days? Alliance Insight. Are you talking about OCG? Because in the TCG, we don't get Alliance Insight for another couple of months. So this is not going to be post-Alliance Insight. The only thing that we get in March is Maze of Master, and we still haven't had the full set list revealed. The only thing that we do know that is coming is the Galaxy Eye, the Galaxy Eye Tachyon stuff. But I'll do another update once we get those so we know exactly what's in there, because if Konami hold one particular card back, it can make it a little bit more awkward to judge it fairly. Exodia. So this is obviously Exodia Millennium, or however you'd like to put it. I don't feel that it's on a consistent competitive level like the Mermals, but I do feel it has anti-meta capabilities, because the idea behind it is that you can utilize stuff like Secret Village, which can be an incredibly powerful lock. You've got a very easy route for a one-punch OTK if you just open up the Millennium Unk. You can flood your board with incredibly powerful monsters as well, and then build it from that point on. So I definitely feel that Exodia can be like an anti-meta deck, because it doesn't really care about its graveyard. So if it does face Malice and they want to try and banish their graveyard, if they want to use something like a D-Shifter, they don't really mind, and they can use D-Shifter themselves. The only real card that will stop them is if they get hit with a D-Barrier, which is being used less and less. They don't really worry massively about Draw Unlock Bird, because if they play it correctly, as long as they get access to the Millennium Unk, and as long as their first search is either Heart of the Blue Eyes or the Millennium Shield to get to the Unk, they then don't worry about the Draw Unlock Bird as much, so they get to play around that. There's no like direct hand trap that will lock them down. They don't really worry about any of the Molchummies. Like, the best thing that's going to happen is if you get Fluorost, you'll give them one draw when you make Exodia, the Incarnation. Other than that, you don't really worry or mind. I've got Snake Eyes here. This is obviously like just one of the old ones. Like, honestly, Snake Eyes, you would have to build a hybrid of Snake Eyes. Like, this would have to be like Azamina Snake Eyes. It would have to be Fire King Snake Eyes. And even then, this is a banned card. So, like, this card artwork doesn't reflect Snake Eyes appropriately, but I do feel that it's local level. I don't think that Snake Eyes itself is anti-meta. Goatee, yes, Goatee could arguably be considered as anti-meta. I think the big difference of when you're trying to consider stuff that, like, it's not just because they can play Shifter do they become anti-meta. So with Goatee, you're probably going to be looking at local level. And the reason for that is, yes, it can be good if it goes off. But if your opponent stops you, especially when you've got Artifact Lancia running around, it's kind of one of them ones where if a deck relies too much on one mechanic, that's where it becomes a little bit tricky. If a deck that can play multiple mechanics does allow you to be a little bit more flexible. So for example, in the Thunder Dragon one, not only can they get to Colossus and lock you down there, they can also get you to a Protoss or an Eschatos. They have the option to go down the Chaos route. They have the option to go down a Synchro route. They have an option to go around the D-Shifter route. So they've got loads of different options that can work within their favor, whether they want to banish or whether they want to be getting stuff kept in their graveyard. When you look at the Labyrinths have the ability to go full-on control, set 5 pass, and block it out. They can also go a little bit more aggressive if they want to add in something like Fiendsmiths as well, but that comes down more of a hybrid option. Then with the Exodia, like I've said, they've got the option of the Millennium Unk into the Exodia for an OTK. They also have a lot of room for non-engine, so they can play a lot of generic hand traps, and they can also play Spooky Dogwood in a main deck if they wanted to. They can play the Fluoroses if they want to focus on going second, and then when they feel that they're going to get made to go first, they go for a Secret Village, which is basically just a very powerful lock against a lot of the main decks right now. I'm going to hold back on Blue Eyes. We'll go for Fire King right now. Now, Fire King, I'm going to put down as a anti-meta deck. I just think it's a really good meta call right now. And Dinkabui showed that. Dinkabui is an exception to the rule because obviously he's an insanely powerful and an insanely good pilot. And that's where it's going to allow it to go up a few more levels. But I would feel that it's a very good anti-meta deck in this one that, as a meta call, It deals with Detonator because like Detonator just allows you to keep floating all of your cards. Most of your cards are strong enough that they don't really worry about Malice too much. It does make it an awkward bit of a matchup, but it just has that capability to be very, very grindy if it needs to. It has the capability to play a decent amount of non-engine, and it can be made on a relatively budget and be kept rather basic. Hot take, Meteoractors are one of the best level 3, rank 3 engines. It makes Tenpai, 6 Sam, Goblins so much better. Exactly that. Right now, Meteoractors, if as they were to perform, would be an engine. And the only engine that I'm utilizing in this particular list will be Fiendsmith. Just because technically Fiendsmith goes in everything to be, to put it to the highest competitive level, in my opinion. Dark Magician, unfortunately, Dark Magician can play at local level. There's no doubt about that. But it's also one of the ones that's like casual fun. Like in playing local level, but to play at local level, you'd want to play a hybrid. You want to play like Dark Magician with Dogmaticas, Dark Magician with Azaminas and stuff like that to make it a fair balance and also give it as much kind of access as possible. Goblin Bikers, I think Goblin Bikers can be considered as anti-meta, especially if you want to start considering stuff like Fiends within there. You can also consider stuff like the Meteoractors. There's so many different options you kind of work around with the Goblin Bikers. I feel that they haven't really matched their full potential with the way that it is. So that can get a little bit tricky. So Tiger, honestly, I feel there are a lot of decks that can compete at a tier 2 to 3 level. I completely agree with that. But people simply move on too fast. Decks like Rescue Ace, Vanquish Soul, Sky Strikers. I completely agree with you right now. Completely agree. There are loads of decks right now that can compete. I feel the biggest issue right now is so many people just go straight to Ryziel or Malice. And it's like if your deck doesn't have a very consistent and good matchup, like if you get lucky on 1 or 2, absolutely fine. But if you get unlucky and you only face Malice all day, you have to be consistent and know exactly you're going to get the outcome of it. So the deck itself would still rate as a tier 2 to 3, but if you are an incredibly good pilot, you'll be able to like push the level of it a lot more. Primite DM is probably one of the better ways to play it, yes. I still feel that it's quite costly right now. Like if you picked up the Primite stuff when it was cheap, well done. That is the thing that I've been trying to shout at people to do when it was £3 each. So that's definitely something you need to keep an eye on. It's more of an engine, so Pure isn't even that good. Yeah, unfortunately. Crystron is there. Don't worry, I'm going to get to Crystron in a second. Crystron is this one over here. People are playing Prank Kids at my local. Wow, okay. Purely as Hopium for Meow Mew to be unbanned. It would be really cool if it did get unbanned. I don't know if it would actually make Prank Kids like meta contender again, but you never know. Everyone play Boom Mac as a hand trap in the main deck. Yeah, I mean, like... I really do like what Goblin Bikers can offer. I just feel that they haven't really met their potential. I do feel that one thing that is holding Goblin Bikers back is how the Fiendsmith engine can just make the deck so much more easily accessible to their rank 6. And what I mean by that is if the Fiendsmith engine was to get a reprint in a budget set that made it a lot cheaper and easier to get hold of, I feel that you would see a sudden up spike in the representation of Goblin Bikers around. I pulled it from a pack and I was so mad that I got one of the worst secrets, then traded it for a Mitsurugi core and a Typhon. What secret are you referring to? Any chance for Gren Manju? See, Gren Manju is actually really, really funny. And I would play Gren Manju with Golden Castle. I feel that it would start off with the ability of going, cool, there's Gren Manju. Like, you would get away with going set Gren Manju pass. Like, I think it was like, what was it? It was... maybe 2 or 3 years ago, there was a player, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head, so apologies for that one. But they ended up getting like top cut at YCS because they were playing Gren Manju, and they kept setting a Gren Manju, and your opponent was so fearful. Oh yeah, Primate Lordy Load. Yeah, Jesus. Yeah, usually you'd be like, this is the worst secret ever. But I was trying to pick them up at £3 each, and I sold mine at £20 a copy just because I wanted to upgrade to the quarter centuries. So the way that I saw it is I'm not going to hold and stockpile secrets. As soon as I can upgrade my secrets and they're cheap enough for a quarter century because I play in Dark Magician, I then got rid of my secrets. So yeah, so Gren Manju is actually like a really fun deck, but I feel you'd be looking at Gren Manju being a casual fun deck. I don't think you're going to be able to... it'll probably catch a few people off at locals, but I don't think it's going to like dominate a lot. I'm just going to move Blue Eyes down here because I've got a lot to say about Blue Eyes, so I'll talk about that much in a minute. How much in Australian dollars is Dominus Pulse going for? Because I pulled one back in October and I still have it. Dominus Impulse. I mean, like, for us in the UK, an Impulse is like £50, which I think works out... I don't know what the conversion rate is for... so let's do Great British Pounds to Australian dollars. So I think it's like 100 US. Yeah, it's like 101 Australian dollars. There you go. Decent. Numelia is a good anti-meta option against Ryzeal. Can Eclipse Twins get Detonator back from the banish tile? I mean, I would love Numelia to be like a competitive anti-meta deck. Unfortunately, I just don't think that that's the case. Crystron, I think Crystron can compete. I wouldn't even say that it's anti-meta. I actually do feel that Crystron can seriously compete. You either play Pure, you can play Adventure, you can play Kashtira's. I've seen the most recent one was like with Kashtira's and Azamina. That deck can compete. Like the fact that it just keeps on going, and I feel what gives it a massive edge right now is the fact that your opponent, not all of your opponents know exactly what it does, and depending on what edition engines that you play can really cause them more issues. Now don't get me wrong, these two lines here, competitive and anti-meta, they're both within the same bracket. The biggest difference is I feel that this can compete against all of the range of decks. I feel that it plays against everything on a balanced level at a competitive level. The anti-meta decks, I feel, are better for a specific format. Like the format we're in gives them a benefit. And what I mean by that is the format that we're in, Fire Kings, is really good against Ryzeal. The format that we're in, Goblin Bikers can be really good against Ryzeal. Thunder Dragons can be really good against the main metas of Malice, but when it comes down to the road matchups, not so much. Whereas I feel that Mermail, Atlanteans, and Krystrons can stand on their own no matter what they face. So, really, really do like it. Yeah, depending on what your definition is of Crystron, if you're considering Crystron as pure, where they don't play Adventure, they don't play Cash, they don't play the Azaminas or anything like that, then yeah, it's not as good as it could be. But you very easily just add in those engines and it becomes insanely good. I really enjoy Synchron deck lately. It's a bit difficult to play through hand traps, but the end boards are completely insane. Yeah, usually with Synchrons, your end board, you put everything. It's quite like, it reminds me of Triff's Pendulums back in the day, because he would put everything he had on the board as consistently as he possibly could, and the end board was nearly impossible to break. And what you were saying to your opponent was, break this board and you win. Don't break this board and I win. And it was basically like a one-turn set up and go. And that's what Synchrons really is. I feel that Ancient Gear is a local level on a consistent basis, but I feel if you're a really good pilot, you can probably push it at a competitive event. The next one is White Forest. I think White Forest can compete. Again, I think White Forest, yes, of course, you can class it with different hybrids as well and where you'd want to put it and what you'd want to mix with it, but I feel that White Forest are just incredibly powerful. Now, I know that people are considering White Forest Blue Eyes as an option. I wouldn't say that that's the strongest version of it, but I just feel that the White Forest themselves are insanely powerful. I feel you could very easily play it with Runic, and quite like on the same level as Krystrons and Mermails, they can stand on their own. They're not just having a really good format because of the most represented decks. These decks themselves can compete, which I think what makes it really, really good. Now, I've got Mitsurugis down here. I'm probably going to class this as a Mitsurugi engine. I think the Mitsurugi itself is a local level deck. When you start mixing it with stuff like the Ryzeals, it definitely bumps up itself. But I feel that with a Mitsurugi, to play it pure, we need to see what support we get in Alliance Insight. And then you also need to kind of consider you want to go down more of a Reptile route, which then opens up the door for the Odatics. And that's kind of where it would be. What do I think of the new support in Maze of Master? Will they change the meta or will the same decks be the best? The only thing I would say is I think it would bring more decks into the conversation. But I feel that ultimately all it does is it makes Malice worse and it makes Ryzeal better. For the pure fact that it gives Ryzeal access to search out Lancia, and then that just makes it have an insanely good matchup against Malice. And then on top of that as well, unless they bring in anything too exclusive or an insanely powerful broken engine for the Odin kind of cards, or the Orin cards, I can't imagine those decks are going to change. The Galaxy deck will be something that a lot of people will be playing around with and will be utilizing, but I think there's still too much unknown in Maze of Master for us to really kind of make it a massive meta call, but I do feel that ultimately Ryzeal and Malice will still be around the top. I feel that Malice will take a bit of a dip and more people will jump onto the Ryzeal hype. Thunderies, I wouldn't say it's anti-meta, it probably is local level, and anyone that plays Thunderies, don't get offended by this, the deck is insanely good. The issue is right now, it's just not the format for it, and probably that's what I should put with Casual Fun. Maybe I should change Casual Fun to just not the format. And what I mean by that is, and then there I'm going to put Flunderies in this one. What I mean by that is it just doesn't do well. Like, it has to deal with, it doesn't need to deal with the Mole Chummy so much, but it has to deal with Drow and Lockbird. It has to deal with Lancia. Like, they're two insanely powerful Floodgate cards that really do shut their strategies down. Now, of course, they can compete. I'm not saying that they can't. What I'm saying is it just really isn't the format for them right now. I feel that if you are going to be to try and take something like Flunders all the way to the top at a high level competitive event, and you need to face 99% of those decks are going to have Lancia and or Drow and Lockbird in their main or side, you need to get incredibly lucky to play for it. And unfortunately, it's not back the way it used to be, where it's like, okay, cool, I've got Drolled, but I still end on a barrier statue, which is very tricky for my opponent to out. And yes, Alliance Insight will get Malice back up next to Ryziel, because then they get a little bit more consistent, they get a little bit more aggressive as well. Flume Malice matchup is interesting to watch. I can imagine it probably is. Azamina's is very tricky to actually rate, because the Azamina's is more of a competitive engine that works with the White Forests. But I do also feel that the engine is a competitive engine. Like, you could put that in most decks. The fact it gives you access to a draw, the fact it gives you access to a disruption if you want it, and an Omni Negate, arguably you could probably say that it's competitive, because I don't think it's one of them ones that is like an anti-meta. Like, it's just good because of the format that it's in. But I do feel that it can be competitive on its own. Gladiator Beast just local level. I thought the new support would really kind of push them up a notch, but unfortunately just doesn't really do it. Insects, I'm going to put in not this format, but I'm also like, this is casual as well. Like, insects can be done. Actually, I'll tell you what, local level is going to be casual from now on. Let's do local level / casual. We're gonna adapt this as we go. Branded. Oh, I really want Branded to be up here. I don't think it's anti-meta. Yes, of course, it can put down a lock, but it puts down that lock regardless of what it faces. It's not having a good matchup against Malice or having a good matchup against Ryziel. It just, if it goes first and sets up a lock, it'll be good against anything. I'm probably going to get some hate for this one, but like, I think it's local level. Like, I can't see Branded consistently being competitive on the same level as these decks up here. And I don't feel that it's an anti-meta choice. I feel it's one of the ones that it can do well with the right pilot, but I think this is one of them scenarios where the pilot will dictate how good that deck can do. Sky Striker, again, would be dictated as an engine. It's like a competitive engine. As a deck itself, it's like local level. The Dolce can go a lot higher up. There we go. Just going to shuffle these around a little bit. Yeah, I think Sky Tracker is a competitive engine, no doubt about it. But if we're talking about Sky Tracker, the deck on its own, I just don't think it has enough firepower. Like, it's still pretty good because it can go engage, search out Widow Anchor, negate. And it'll probably play a lot of board breakers. It would definitely be like a Ryan Yu style deck where you have to play a lot of board breakers to get the most from it. But again, I don't feel that on its own, if you're just playing Sky Strikers, is a high level competitive deck. Kashtira's kind of share the same thing. Like, it's a competitive engine, there's no doubt about it. And I feel that there's a lot of decks right now that are only playing one-offs in their extra deck. So being able to resolve a Kashtira Unicorn to rip one of those one-offs from the extra deck can be really, really good. The downside of it is, if you go up against a Ryziel matchup, the Ryziel matchup will probably stomp you because they play detonators at multiple. And it does make it more awkward. I could arguably see it being an anti-meta deck, but it's only really anti-meta against Malice because you get to look at their extra deck. You don't care about D-Shifter. You don't really need to care about any of the chummies. So it's more of a, again, quite like Striker. It's a competitive engine, no doubt about it. It's probably more of an anti-meta style deck than it is a like local casual deck, in my opinion. Speaking of Glad Beast, what Edison deck do you think is best if all the decks from that got their modern support? Like Glad Beast, Blackwinds, Monarchs, etc., but no art type released after Edison. Rank 7 engine is good. Chaos Hunter and Kashtira is a 7s. Yeah, the Chaos Hunter can be really, really good. That's another one you need to watch out for. And that's the one thing that the Kashtiras can do. It's just the fact of the matter is, it's like Kashtiras themselves, you would play them in Cristrons because you can actually go into a rank 7. So I saw people go into Draco Sack. Draco Sack spawns 2 tokens. Those 2 tokens go into Cherubini. Cherubini then sets up your entire Crystron engine, which I thought is absolutely insane. So it's definitely something that is probably more anti-meta, which is why I would probably put it in there. How's the Fire King Blue Eyes matchup? Do you mean Fire King versus Blue Eyes? If so, Blue Eyes don't really need to pop the Fire Kings as much, so they can float around a pretty decent amount. And the Blue Eyes themselves, depending on what other engine you play it with, can play through some Fire King interruptions. So I'd say the Blue Eyes can have a very decent matchup. Malice, I kind of want to put Malice here, but if we're talking about after Maze of Master, Malice goes here. Like, after Maze of Master, this Malice is here, in my opinion. Right now, Malice is probably here. So, Mementos can compete. There is no doubt about that. I wouldn't even say that Mementos is a metical. Like, we saw Memento get, a couple of Mementos get top 64 at YCS Burnham, and I'm pretty sure one of them got, like, top 8 or top 16. So, Mementos can definitely compete. There's just a very kind of convoluted deck that you need to be a very good pilot to take it to the heights that it needs to be. I wouldn't say that it's an anti-meta deck because I don't think that it has an insanely powerful Ryziel or Malice matchup. I just feel that it can, quite like the rest in this category, compete on its own. What Kyber deck do you think is better, Blue Eyes or Union deck in MAMS? What's MAMS? That's not Mastered, or is it? So you have to explain to me what you mean by MAMS. I think Blue Eyes right now is better than a Union deck if we're talking about this. And then the other question was about, speaking of Glad Beast, what Edison deck do you think is best if all the decks from there got their modern support? Glad Beast, Black Queens, Monarchs. I mean, Glad Beast is already pretty strong for that format right now. If Monarchs was at full power, I think they would be very, very... Oh, Maze of Master. Yeah, got you. It's probably still Blue Eyes. I think the new support that Blue Eyes got is just far outweighs the Union deck. Like, it's just so incredibly... But then if you said to me you have to play pure Blue Eyes versus pure like Union deck with ABC Buster Dragon and everything, then maybe Buster Dragon is just too strong. Yeah. I don't know what the acronym would be. I think you're probably right. What is it? Maze of Master. Probably... Like, is it Mama? Nah, they can't do Mama again, would they? I think you're probably right with MAMS. What do I think about Lightsworn and Lightsworn and Phantom Knights? Is that what you're asking? Mimigal, it's just not the format. Like, you get hit with Mimigal can be really good, and if you mix it with a couple of engines, it's really kind of cool. But if you face a deck like up here that can play Dominus Purge, this deck just auto loses. Sharks is very fun, but very casual. Pearly, I want to put Pearly up here, and I want to put it up here, but I think it kind of sits around here. Like, the deck can be very, very good, but the fact of the matter is people already have targets on the back of XYZ decks because of stuff like the Detonators and Ryziels. So people will already be considering stuff like Book of Eclipses. There'll already be stuff like D-Barriers. They've got to deal with Fluoroses and everything else. Yeah, no, I just want you to confirm. She could confirm that you're talking about Lightsworns and Phantom Knights. If that's what you're talking about, I can very easily talk about those. Rescue Ace. I think Rescue Ace, you know what, it could actually be a very good anti-meta call because it kind of has the same control aspects of Labyrinths. It's got the destructions effect that it needs. I just feel that the issue is up against Detonator. Detonator just go, they do something and Detonator goes pop. They do something again, Detonator pop. Do something, Detonator pop. So I feel that it could actually have a pretty awkward matchup. But I do feel with the right pilot as well, it could push those competitive decks to the edge a little bit. That's just in my opinion. I'm not even going to... Ryziel is the best deck right now, this format. No doubt about it. The fact that it can be played with Fiendsmith, the fact that it can be played with... Especially when we go past Maze of Master, the fact that it gets the Tachyon, not that it needs it, but they could technically swap out Bonfire, or you would cut Bonfire down, and you would add in the Tachyon, and the Tachyon then gives you access to search out Lancers. So not only does it search out the consistent factors, but it also searches them out like the main anti-meta trap against the next strongest and highly represented deck in the form of Malice. Poseidon is such a good card for any water deck. It dumps Dragoons for cost and bounces a monster 100%. Absolutely love Poseidon. What a great addition. I understand that people, not sure if it's just a couple of guys and my sister at locals who play Mimigal, play Kashtira with it, but personally I'd only use it as an engine. Yeah, so you use Kashtira as an engine just because you can, like when you give them a monster, you trigger the monster, or they trigger the monster effect, so you always get to look at their extra deck, which is always going to be quite helpful, and then you can just start ripping cards apart. What do you think about Ryziel with Onomats? Again, sorry, I either I'm out of the loop on these acronyms, or I call them something different. So you'll have to be a little bit clarifying that one. So what do I think about Light Sworn and Phantom Knights? I miss Phantom Knights, if I'm being completely honest with you. I missed how good they were, because they were a really nice balanced deck that had the ability of control cards or board cards with stuff like Fogblade and everything. The issue is I feel that a lot of people have adapted now so that it's not as strong as it used to be. I feel they need to worry about special summoning from the hand, special summoning from the graveyard. Like, all of the Mole Chummies just have absolute field days against Phantom Knights, and it does make it really, really awkward. It's a new card for Gargagar, Zababa, and Dododos. Oh, I haven't really... Oh, that makes sense. Omnimats, on the mat appears and stuff. I haven't really looked into them too much because we don't get them until... Like, that's going to be the third core set of the year, which means we're not going to get it until the summer. So... I've seen the artworks of them and I think they look really kind of cool, but I try not to go too far ahead because I feel that when you get too far ahead, there's ban lists to consider, which might make decks stronger, might make decks weaker. So yeah, it's always kind of a weird one. Can Fogblade be good in this format? I mean, Fogblade can be good, but the issue is when you look at Malice, like you Fogblade their Malice monster, they go, okay, cool, turn it into a Link monster and then banish it, bring it back, and off we go. If you do it to a Ryziel monster, they go, okay, whatever, I'll overlay it. If you do it to a Duo Drive, they go, okay, cool, whatever, I'm still going to get a Detonator. Like, they don't really worry about Fogblade that much. And then Sakif, their rank 4 search is an Omni that needs you to detach 2 materials. I mean, I think the deck could be good. It depends on what format we're in when we get there and how effective ranks are going to be when we get it. We can play it under Mold Chummies, especially with the Adventure Engine. I mean, the Adventure Engine then... I mean, you can't really play under with the Adventure Engine unless you're going to end on the Adventure Engine. So they still have Mold Chummies to cause you issues. There's still Droll to cause you issues. Lancia can still be a bit of a semi-pain. I'm not saying the deck can't be played and it's like unplayable this format. I just feel that it's kind of been semi-power crept as well. Like, you can build your board very easily, very well. But yeah, I think it just gets a little bit awkward as you continue to go. Where would I put Necros and would you make a profile on it? Necros right now, I don't think it's the format for it. When we get the new support for them, which is already confirmed for the Battles of Legend of this year, the deck will be really, really kind of cool. And I can't wait for those new cards because they just make it a hell of a lot more consistent. I'm still amazed that we don't have a Necros track card. Like, that still blows my mind. So... you got to play PK Goblin Meteor Actor. Yeah, I can see that happening. The Meteor Actor, like the rank 3 engine right now is so strong with Goblin Bikers. So I think playing PK pure would be a little bit risky. Ritual Beasts. I'm just going to put Ritual Beast down here, not the format. If the player that got to the finals at Euros and then also got to, I think it's like day 2 or topped at Worlds, can't be playing it. It can get very, very awkward. I mean, 3 negates from 1 draw is decent. Absolutely fine. I'm not saying that PKs can't produce. The issue is that needs to play through hand traps. How many hand traps can you play through? And then can it play through a detonator? How balanced are you going second? Can you build that board going second, dealing with a detonator without saying, oh, I opened up Book of Eclipse or I have to open up a breaker to do so? So yeah, Ritual Beast, it's just not the format. Like Lanciers, Shifters, they can kind of play around, they don't really care. But then also you got to deal with the Mole Chummies as well. Remember when Rip Beast was a top tier deck at like $100? Yep, and now the top tier decks are like $500. What would you consider the ideal hand traps other than Nib and Ash this format? I'm quite partial to Dominus Purge. I think, Dominus Impulse. I think Dominus Impulse is absolutely insane. Really, really do like that card. I feel like the Fluoros is just a pretty go-to kind of card that a lot of people play. I honestly really like Infinite Impermanence. I think that card's just always a really kind of good card running around. Lancia, Chaos Hunter, they're all going to be like meta choices for this format. So you kind of adapt it from there. Fiendsmiths, I'm putting Fiendsmith up here. As a deck, it's not here, but like this engine is just too cracked. It shouldn't be the way that it is. It shouldn't be as generic as it is. So it stays up here. Six Samurai, anti. Six Samurai is kind of like the Synchron deck where it just can't play a lot of non-engine, and quite like the Triff Pendulum build, it just goes bleh. there's everything I have on the field. Oh yeah, Ghost Ogre is actually a really good hand trap this format. It goes, here's everything I've got on the field. Break it, you win. Don't break it, I win. So Runics, I don't think it's the format for Runics. And the reason I say that is they can't really deal with Detonator as consistent as they would like. They have to burn through a lot of resource to deal with it. I wouldn't say it's an anti-meta deck on its own. I feel that if you were to hybrid this with something else, it would be an anti-meta deck. I just don't feel that it's the format for it. I feel that it can have some good matchups, but I also feel that it can have some very bad matchups as well. Do you think they will limit Engraver or will they ban Tractor Lorry? I think, personally, what they could do is they can ban... it depends on how hard they want to hit it. If they wanted to do it love tapped bit by bit, is you ban Moon of the Close Heavens, which means it no longer becomes a generic engine for everyone. It becomes a, you need to get access to a Light Fiend and work from there. Then the next ban list, you either ban Lorry or you ban Lorry and Moon at the same time. Requiem could get banned, but I feel, at least if you ban Requiem, you still have Engraver, but then it doesn't make the engine as abusable. I feel that we will not see any bans directly to the Fiendsmith cards themselves until they get to reprint it. So if you see the Fiendsmith cards confirmed for Stampede in April, you bet your bottom dollar that after April the next ban list will hit the Fiendsmith cards. Centurion, I think Centurion can be a really good anti-meta deck right now. It's kind of this grey area. Like, it should be doing better than it actually is. I don't feel that it's definitely a good meta call, but again, I feel that this format right now, like in the Fiendsmith version that we had previous to this, you saw that Pack could do really well with it, and a lot of pilots could do really well with it as well. So it does work out nicely, but I feel that it could be more of an anti-meta deck. I don't think you need to ban Moon because there are other Light Fiends. There's probably like a rank 3 one, rank 4 one. So again, there are, but Moon is a generic link. Any deck can play it. Rank 3, you need to play a rank 3 deck. Rank 4, you need to play a rank 4 deck. It makes it a little bit more awkward to do. So if they wanted to drip feed these hits, you ban Moon and you go, cool, keep playing with Fiendsmiths. Or you semi-limit Engraver, which doesn't make any difference because people are only really playing 2 of the Engravers anyway. The hardest hit would be hit Requiem, because then that completely destroys the consistency of the deck. But then that makes it a little bit harder to promote the resales of it, because then it doesn't make it as generic. Maybe you keep Moon, but then what does Moon go... If you ban Requiem, what does Moon go into? Like, subsequently, if you ban Requiem, you technically ban Moon as well, because then no one goes and makes Moon, because you're not going to be able to go Moon into Requiem. So you probably get rid of you slow it down by going, there's no Moon. Now you need to play a rank 3 engine, or in Ryzeo, you're already playing a rank 4 engine or a rank 4 monster that can do it anyway. So you kind of basically say, all right, Fiendsmith is now no longer splashable for everything. It's just going to be good for the decks that can make it. So yeah. I agree with you, Andrew. I would be sad if they banned Moon, because I actually quite liked Moon in the Sneaker release, where you actually use Moon to go into a Link 5. I thought that was really kind of cool. Banning Lorry, the issue I have with banning Lorry is it doesn't actually really do a huge amount. It means that Tracked becomes less reliable, which is absolutely fine, but you would still be able to go, cool, any 2 monsters, make Moon, Moon into Requiem, Requiem Lacrima, Lacrima go from there. So like, there's definitely targets, but you have to get into Griffin to do it. So in a Link deck, you no longer can go into a generic Link 2, you have to go into a Griffin. I agree with you. Requiem would completely kill the engine. That's what I'm saying. I don't think Requiem will be the first hit. I think, if anything, it will be a non-Fiendsmith card that gets hit. So Moon or Lorry or both. Then in the next one, keep in mind that people will play Tracked at 1. So if you hit Lorry or Moon, it makes it a little bit more difficult to make. It makes it a little less awkward, makes it more awkward to abuse. And that's where it kind of, I feel that there's that grey area, because you go, it's still playable. Players will still want to buy the reprints. Players will still buy the product for the reprints, but it's not as disgustingly brutal. I feel that if you limit Engraver, nothing. Ban Lacrima could be quite awkward. Yeah, banning Lacrima could make it a bit weird. But I don't know if... I just find it weird if Konami ban cards that they haven't reprinted yet. And I don't feel that ban lists are decided... Like, the week the ban list drops, I don't think the ban lists are decided then. I think the ban list is already decided. I think they already know what cards they're going to ban and what they're changing on the ban list now. and it doesn't get released until later on. That's just my opinion anyway. Banning Laurie would at least get rid of a body and stop Trap from being an auto +1. I agree with you on that one. Like, I can see Laurie getting hit. There's no doubt about that. But I wouldn't be... Basically, what I'm saying is, if they banned Requiem, I'd be a little bit surprised. But I'm like, okay, cool. If they banned Laurie, I'd be like, yeah, all right, makes sense. If they banned Laurie and Moon, I'd be like, yeah, all right, that makes sense. The only one that I'd be shocked is if they limited Engraver. I'd be like, really? That's interesting. So... Like, if they ban Laurie, then Engraver isn't a one-card combo. Don't ban Lacrimon, beautiful. Anyway, I've got to carry on with this list. Speedroids is kind of like Bugs. It's like a local level deck. It's really, really fun. Very, very powerful. Very, very consistent. Elemental Heroes, local. It just gets absolutely rammed by Nibiru. Like, the fact that heroes do not have a negate to deal with monster negate. Like, I don't care how much it costs. Give me a Link 1 hero or a very easy to make hero before Summon 5 that literally says tribute a hero, tribute yourself, whatever, to negate a monster effect. I would take that all day long. Argo Star is basically just casual fun. It just really isn't there yet. Tenpai, I still think Tenpai are competitive. I feel you can play Board Breaker Tenpai, you can play Blue Eyes Tenpai. I think the deck is still very, very powerful. The consistency is a big issue of it, but I feel that's where your other engine comes into play. So a pure Tenpai deck isn't competitive, but when you start going, all right, well, if you count Tenpai on its own, plays all the Board Breakers, again, absolutely fine. Like, I know someone that won a OTS championship with this, and it's just incredibly powerful, but their opening hand was like, go second, 1 Tenpai monster, and then 5 board-breaking cards. I was like, that's insane. Vanquish Soul, casual level. Really fun deck. Very, very casual, though. So, heroes always have to be fair, even outside of the comics, unfortunately, in the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, heroes are just way too balanced. Chimera, Illusion. I feel Chimera Illusion can actually compete. I think they're very, very strong. Very, very strong. It's probably on the lower end of the competitiveness. Like, if I was to shake this up, we're probably going to be doing this. But yeah, I still think it can compete. I think the Voiceless Voice is an anti-meta deck. It might be a bit of a hot take there, but I feel that a lot of people are unprepared for it, and I feel that it doesn't really need to care about any of the chummies, which is really, really helpful. It doesn't really worry about Droll. Like, the good pilots know how to play around Droll. Shifter can be a bit of an issue, but Shifter is obviously only going to be one matchup, and even then it may or may not be used. And then in the Ryziel matchup as well, the Ryziel matchup can be quite interesting because they have the ability to play a decent amount of non-engine, so they can just stop it getting there. Or one thing a lot of players have done is they've found a way to not have to normal summon Low or Diviner and then get hit on a hand trap and end their turn. A lot of players are playing more ritual spells in order to kind of ritual from the hand directly using Low and then go combo that way while saving your normal summon. So I would love Dark World to be anti-meta. I really would. But, yeah. Well, actually, I'm going to put it here. It's just not the format for Dark World. It really isn't. Dark World need to deal with Droll. Lance is not that big of an issue, but it needs to deal with Droll. It needs to deal with 3 different chummies. It needs to deal with Lancia, which sometimes can be a little bit awkward if you're trying to banish from the graveyard. Like, if they went draw phase and they went Lancia, straight away that shuts off Allure if you play it. It shuts off Genta if you play it. It shuts off the ability of activating a session to banish from the graveyard as well. So it does make it very awkward. Yubel. I think Yubel, I wouldn't say it's anti-meta. I would say Yubel is competitive. Like, Yubel is still really good. It's just dropped off because it just isn't as consistent with only one Phantom, which is insane to consider, but it kind of is a very interesting one. Blue Eyes, White Dragon. I've drifted around this long enough. Blue Eyes can compete. Blue Eyes Primite is probably the strongest one possible, which is insanely powerful. But then the amount of different variants that Blue Eyes has, Blue Eyes Tenpai is massively aggressive, will catch a lot of people off. And the one thing about it is Blue Eyes has so many different variants that it's very difficult for your opponent to narrow down exactly what you're playing when you do it. What I mean by that is, if I rock up to locals with Blue Eyes, I could be playing a Blue Eyes Tenpai, I could be playing a Blue Eyes Dragoon, I could be playing Blue Eyes Synchro, Blue Eyes Primite, Blue Eyes Bestial. There's so many different variants of it that even though if you stop the Blue Eyes, they still have ways to continue to play. And the better Blue Eyes players will know where their choke points are and know how to play through it unless they have an incredibly bad hand. And if they have an incredibly bad hand, they're always going to struggle anyway. So I think for any ritual deck, you need Goblin Bikers Gone Wild because you normally summon Doug, search Bash, make both level 9, make an Agitator, send Herald to search, then activate it. That's kind of cool. Attach Herald, then link Agitator into Gravity Controller. Not bad. So you get 2 ritual searches. That's pretty cool. Darkwood is all I play and I've been competing insanely well. I don't auto lose to Droll with my build. Very interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, for a deck to be good in a format, it needs to make sure that it doesn't lose to the hand traps that are just currently being used, which is absolutely insane. Pick one of these 3 decks I play at the next YCS. Snake Eyes, because why not? Tenpai Striker or Prank Kids. I'll tell you what. At the next YCS that you go to, if Meow Mew is back, play Prank Kids. If it's not, play Tenpai Striker. Does it lose to Bestials? Is this the hand-rip version? No, it doesn't want to lose to Bestials either. I don't play Silver. So... Okay, Andrew, I'm gonna be completely honest right now. If you tell me that you're playing Dark World Fiendsmith, right, and you say to me, Dark World Fiendsmith, and you play 4 Dark Worlds, it's not a Dark World deck, right? I'm just saying. You're gonna make me check this out, aren't you? Let's have a look. Dark World Fiendsmith. Where's the list? Where is the list, bruh? Oh, is this it? No, that's Danger Dark World. Ah, this has got the deck profile in it. Okay. Okay, so what have we got? We've got 2 Rainbow, 1 Greffa, 1 Lucian, 3 Gentar, 1 Snow, interesting, 1 Ceruli, 1 Fiendish Rhino, 1... I'm trying to remember... Like, I know what that is. That's like the level... The Fiend that when it's sent to graveyard sends a Fiend, doesn't it? Okay, so you send Visago, I assume. Maybe. You've got the Fiendsmith engine in here. You've got triple Gen and 1 Ken. Triple Corridor, 2 Gates, 1 Accession, 1 Archives, 1 of the one that banishes from what's it called? Puppetry. 1 Reinforce of the Army, 1 Triple Tactic Talents, 1 Triple Tactics Thrust, 3 Book of Eclipse, 3 Imperm. You've got Colourless, Greffa, Chaos Angel, Baguska, Underworld Goddess, a Bower Q, 2 Muckrakers, 1 Zelantis, Cross Sheep, Moon, Sequence, Requiem. Side deck is triple Droll, triple Ash, triple Chaos Hunter, triple Lanceyard, double Storm, 1 Duster. Interesting. I plan to use Invoked White Forest first. I'm going Fiendsmith for now. Interesting. The amount of different versions Blue Eyes makes is so addicted to play since they don't have all the chummies, Purge and Primites. I'm experimenting. Yeah, it is great how versatile Blue Eyes can be. Along with Blue Eyes, I'm glad to play Tenpai, even though it's a hit. Can't wait for the new Dragon Maids and going to pick up Buster Blader stuff. Yeah, I would wait for the Buster Bladers. Like, once they reprint the Whelp, then it all becomes cheap again. Playing a Molchummy Rysel deck. OCG keeps on exploring other alternatives to keep up with the meta. It is a good for the community. Played 10 Dark World Monsters in his latest video. I got rid of the Cool Buy for Dark Spirits Mastery and the Doom Dog. Yeah, there you go. Baguska was cut for Wave Hiking. Yeah, Wave Hiking makes sense. Book of Eclipses are interesting. Yeah, interesting build all around, to be fair. Guessing you play Mustard also, Dell. What rank are you? Bagusi was cut. I'll let them go through that. Okay, so that's pretty much the tier list. I'm going to end the pre-record of the tier list. I'll stay on for about another 15 or so minutes. So anyone else that has some questions, I can answer them while I'm here. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up the pre-record of the tier list. Hope this has been informative for you. Obviously, these are only my opinions. I'm going to be looking at it a little bit different away from different people. So by all means, let me know what your particular lists are in the comments down below, and I'll be more than happy to view them and go from there. For now, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.